What's going on, everybody? Skywalking Wetz podcast here. Today we got a special guest, Justin Harbison, Montana native out of Missoula, Montana. Wrestled at Sentinel High School, wrestled at the University of Great Falls / the University of Providence, and now he is training MMA and fighting professionally on the regional scene. And so I wanted to bring Justin on today just to kind of share his story, his journey from growing up in Montana, wrestling, going to the collegiate level, being an All-American, and now chasing the dream of being an MMA fighter, man. And so I think there's a lot of good things to learn from this conversation, and lessons of resiliency, hard work, work ethic, and everything above, man. And so without further ado, Justin Harbison, thank you for joining me today, brother. Thank you.
Of course. I'm glad to be here, and I'm ready to share some information and give anyone insight that needs it.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. So, yeah, just for everybody who doesn't know, I met Justin at the University of Providence. I was on the basketball team. He was on the wrestling team. And, you know, when we'd be in the weight room, I'd see those poor wrestlers just running around the building, and they'd run all the way miles down to the river and climb hills and stuff, and it was insane. But one thing that stood out to me is, like, how tall are you? Are you like 6'3"?
6'4".
6'4". You know, he's probably the tallest wrestler I've ever seen in my life. But, you know, I'd work for the athletic department, so I'd get to watch some of the wrestling matches, and this dude's a dog. Everybody there was a dog, but him specifically was a dog. So it's awesome. Again, it's awesome having you on here. I know I've been kind of touching base with you over the last, month or two to get you on, but I'm glad we finally got some time, dude.
Yeah, I'm excited to join you, and like I said, I'm excited to share my story and give whatever insight I can give to anyone that needs it.
Absolutely, bro. So I guess let's just kind of dig into it here. So you grew up in Missoula. Were you born and raised in Missoula?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Missoula. I've lived my whole. Now that I'm back here, I've been 6 years that I lived in Great Falls, but other than that, I've been in Missoula for most of my life.
Heck yeah, dude. In Sentinel High School alumni?
Yeah, yes, sir. Sentinel High School graduated in the class of 2014. Obviously, you got to play with Z in college, and he went to school with him, and obviously, a lot of the guys that I went to high school with as well.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with some dudes from out there. Just growing up playing basketball and baseball. Montana. It's a big state, but it's very like small at the same time. Everyone kind of figures out who's who and who's where and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I was just telling him before we went live that I had no idea he went to Sentinel. That was something that just completely went over my head, which is great. So, growing up in Missoula, what was that like for you? Like, what kind of sports, athletics did you play? What'd you do in your free time, and kind of what led you into wrestling?
Yeah, so growing up in Missoula was nice. I love Missoula. I came from a pretty lucky childhood growing up for the most part. Got to do all the sports that wanted to try. My parents never really restricted me on what sports I got to try. I played baseball, I played football, played golf, I played soccer for a little bit. I did all the sports. As I started to get older, I really played. My main sports were baseball, and that was just because my parents wanted to keep me active when I wasn't wrestling. So it was baseball and football. Um, and then I played basketball up until you had to actually decide between a sport in the winter.
Mm.
Um, and I chose wrestling just because I really enjoyed the work that you had to put in. And I was naturally just pretty good at it. I qualified for state when I was too young to go, actually. My parents signed me up, and I qualified for Little Guy State really young, and they saw that I had a little passion for it. And my dad was always the type that he wasn't going to push me in a direction for a sport unless he knew I was about it. And once they started seeing my my love for wrestling. They kind of gave me a little kick in the ass to do it, keep doing it, and keep pushing towards it.
Oh yeah, dude. Heck yeah. So, did you play football in high school too?
Yeah, I played football up until my freshman and sophomore year,
Mm-hmm.
is what I played football. And then once it became to where you had to start going to summer camps and all that stuff with the team, I was obviously committed to wrestling, and
Yep.
the missing those camps just really like hurt your chances of playing, and you kind of got behind you. Like you know about those sports are a little more team oriented, and if you're not around the team, then you're not like building that camaraderie with them, and they just feel kind of out of place at times.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. A couple podcasts ago, I had a kid on here that I played baseball with growing up, and we were kind of talking about the same thing. Is we picked our baseball team that we played with in the summer instead of the Legion team because there's football camps, basketball camps, all these different things in the summer, and they're super important. And for you having that, the wrestling background and really being passionate about wrestling, um, missing those camps probably does hurt your chances. Or just like, while everyone's getting closer and building that camaraderie, as you said, you're not really around. But I do know that there was a lot of cool wrestling camps that I remember some of my homies going to in the summer. Like that Northern Idaho one, I think was one of
Yeah.
them.
Hmm.
Y'all be jumping off the jumping off the cliffs and
Yeah.
everything like that. Um, but yeah, I think growing up, just trying all sports, I really liked how you said your dad didn't really force you into anything unless he knew you were really about it. And so you kind of got into the wrestling. What age was that? What age did you kind of start?
I started wrestling in kindergarten, but there was probably it was probably like around late elementary school, early middle school is when I really started to notice. I was like, wrestling's a sport I want to do.
Hmm. Yeah, dude, I remember. I remember when I was like fourth or fifth grade. My grandpa was like, "You're gonna wrestle," and I was like, no, 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 no. And he signed me up, and it was time to go to wrestling practice, and I like hid under the table, and I was like, "No, no, I don't want to go to wrestling," because I had a friend who lived in the trailer court I lived in, and he was Dallas Davison. I don't know if you know Dallas. He's a bare knuckle fighter. I lived literally right
Yeah.
across like the way from him in our trailer court. We were really good friends growing up. Still good dudes. We still keep in touch. But I was like, I can't do it. I've seen how Dallas is. I can't go wrestle a kid like that. He's crazy. And but like as the years went on, I kind of regretted that. Because I've seen, you know, how wrestling and that kind of sport has benefited a lot of people and like my friends. Work ethic, you know, strength and conditioning, staying in shape, all that stuff. Because to be a wrestler, dude, you got to be very disciplined, even at a young age, right? Like, what age, or was it kind of the same way all the way through? Did you have to like start making weight cuts and stuff like that?
I would say I did mostly through little guy. I never really cut a lot of weight, which is like the like the local like wrestling is what you do. It's called like little guy wrestling here in Montana, and I did all that. I never really cut weight, but once my parents started seeing that I was wanting to do more, had a lot of interest in wrestling. We started traveling, and that was around middle school. Um, where I went to like middle school duels down in Iowa. And once I started like traveling and going around the state with the USAW and AAU was when I really started to actually try and cut weight.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't think many people understand like what that does to a kid. And I'm under the believer that you should never cut weight anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely did it a lot when I was going and traveling to these tournaments. And yeah, because it definitely, like you're saying, it almost like I've seen kids. I had a bunch of kids that I wrestled with when I was younger, and making weight, cutting weight every weekend. When you're a younger kid, there's a lot of tournaments of like almost every weekend you can get to go to a tournament if you really wanted to. And you would just see these kids, they ended up burning out by the time they even hit high school.
Mm.
And it was just, they were so sick of the grind of wrestling because, like, as a wrestler and you're committed to it, you don't get like to enjoy a lot of things that other people get to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have to obviously have practice and schoolwork, but then you don't get to just go have junk food and eat terrible. You have to like watch what you're eating. And when you're younger, you obviously don't know how to do it properly. And so you're literally like starving yourself pretty much
Yeah.
when you're a little bit younger. And obviously, I was the first wrestler in my family. Obviously, my brother had done it, but he never really was like committed to wrestling. I was the first one that really committed to it. And so my parents didn't really know how to cut weight. We just took advice from other people. Um, and that advice never was like really good.
Yeah.
It was more so just like, oh, skip your dinner or skip your meal here and you should be able to lose it. But and
Yeah.
obviously at the end of the day, like I still look back and I have bad eating habits and drinking like I can't open a bottle of Gatorade without chugging.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
at least like half of it. And so it's like a lot of those like habits you develop at a younger age just from cutting weight, they carry over. And I just think a lot of times like it's just not like worth it to those younger ages. But obviously like if you're really serious about it, you got to cut weight, right? It's like you can't just go in and not lose a little bit of weight because you want to be in the best shape to go wrestle. So it's like you can't just go in fat, unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta lose a little bit of weight to get in shape, and that's the hard part about it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think that's from my observation growing up, that was probably one of the craziest things to see some of the homies go through. Like as you remember, like Great Falls High, that's where I went. Really good wrestling program when I was going through. Still a great wrestling program, but like the dominance like they had during like was it 2011 to 2015? I think they went they
Stop
three-peated.
them. Yep.
Yeah, dude, like we had some dogs, but for them to go through the constant weight cuts like for every weekend, um it was insane. Like Comac, one of my best friends, like I remember it was always a thing during wrestling season for him. It was like, don't even talk to him just because he was so
Yeah.
miserable, dude. Like, he
You know,
was just skin and bones. He was wrestling at what, like 97 pounds or maybe like 105, something just absurdly low. And he just was so agitated all the time. And then once wrestling season was over, he was the happiest. He was the Comac that we all know, right? And then they just blow up. Like the wrestlers just kind of blow up for a little bit there. But like you kind of alluded to earlier, like I've heard that a lot from people that I know that are in combat sports who have wrestled, is that like the weight cutting thing needs to go, or at least to the severity of which people go to make a certain weight, right? Like if you naturally weigh, 185, you should wrestle at 185 or 170 at the lowest or whatever it is. But if you're cutting from 185 to 155, like that just doesn't seem like it's a good gig for anybody.
and that's being a heavyweight. I always got a room with throughout college, and uh, being the big guy, I always roomed with the little guy and traveled with the little guy just because I was the biggest and it made for the most sense. And I would see a lot of these growing guys, like Isaac Wilson's a prime example, who was our 125 pounder while I was in college, and he would he would get in the off season probably up around 160, 165,
Mm-hmm.
and then he would cut all the way down to 125. And like we were saying, the crazy thing about wrestling, it's not just one weigh-in. He would have to hold that from October all the way to March when Nationals was,
Mm-hmm.
and not allow his body to get too heavy or too fat and out of shape because and then trying to make weight would just be way more miserable and you're doing just so much harm to your body through that.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. It's insane because your season y'all would start right away. Y'all would
Mhm.
start right away. High school, and college. It seemed like high school is a little different because you had people playing football and stuff, but they would have open
Yeah.
mat and whatever. But like the smart ones would kind of start dialing it in before season, and the ones who weren't as smart would kind of dial it in on the first day of practice. Um, it's crazy for me because as a basketball player, I didn't have to worry about that. Like, of course, as an athlete, you got to worry about, okay, maybe I'm not eating McDonald's today. Maybe I'll get, bring a sandwich from home and make sure I'm drinking my water and this, that, and the other. But for a wrestler, it's like I got 3 slices of roast beef today and an orange and not a normal Gatorade, a little Gatorade, you know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so as you're coming up, you get into that high school at Sentinel. What was that experience like for you, just in general? Were you a heavyweight in high school, or what'd you kind of start off as, and how was that experience?
Yeah, so I when I got to high school, I was actually a 145 pounder. I was a tall, skinny guy. I was a string bean for a long time. I didn't really grow into my frame. I was always taller than my body was, being how tall I was, and never really grew into my frame until my senior year. But that throughout Sentinel, I think I'm thankful because like I look back at it and you obviously hear like a lot of like things about like people being hard on you, but I had a lot of like teammates that were hard on me and that were kind of like assholes to me and like pushing me to be better because they knew how good I could get. And like I'm really thankful for that. Like a lot of kids nowadays, like I don't think you could really do a lot of the stuff that I went through in high school, in today's high school era. We'd probably get in a lot of trouble. But I'm really thankful for those because like it just made me have thick skin, um, learn to deal with things, and I had a great coaching staff that I'm thankful for. With Jeremy Laporte, it was an amazing coach. He ran his room. He knew he had a group of kids in my class that he could really push. So every day, and the older kids that he took over because he was like only his third or fourth year. I can't remember when I came in, but he's only been coaching for a couple years in high school, and he had a bunch of like really good classes that he had, and so he was able to push those kids really hard. And when my class came in, he continued that over, and I think I'm just like he really shaped like to where I was able to fall in love with the sport, but also see what it took to be good.
Yeah, dude, that stuff goes a long way. It really does go a long way to have a coach that can push you and take you to those limits. But as you kind of said, some of that stuff you can't do as much anymore with these kids. Like, I think Montana's a little different. I'm out in Colorado now, but um, you really got to watch what you say and watch how you coach, or even as like a teammate, like watch how you approach another person. You know what I mean? It's tough, and I understand some of it, but the other part of it is I'm like, I feel like some, like, not hazing. I don't condone hazing or anything like that, but I also do condone, if a kid's slacking, a teammate
Holding him accountable.
to hold them accountable, right? Or a coach to hold them accountable. And you can only take that soft approach so many times. Sometimes a kid needs to kind of get not screamed at, but get a stern message sent their way. Um, so you started off as a 145. What did that trajectory look like as you're going through high school? Because you started high school, what, 2009, 2010, around then?
2010, yep.
Yep. And so what
We're
that kind of
good.
looked like for you? Because you had a really good conference. I know the Western Double A, Flathead, Glacier, even Capital and Helena High had some really good wrestlers. What was that competition like, and how did that kind of shape you as you were going?
It was tough. My own room was probably just as tough as a lot of people's room. Obviously, we had a lot of good kids. I didn't really start my freshman year. I was really a butterball. I had a lot of success on the regional scene, like my seventh and eighth grade year coming into high school. So I had a lot of high like expectations, but and I traveled around. I did all the traveling to all the tournaments and everything. So I like looked the part, but I didn't really perform the part as my freshman year. Um, but one of the big things I allude to is I just showed up every day wanting to get better. Um, I think even through all the stuff of all the people being assholes, there were days where I was like, man, these people hate me. But now that I'm older, I look back at it as like they pushed me and were always like because they knew my potential and they wanted me to see me reach my potential. And so they were hard on me in that sense of they knew where I could get to and they didn't allow me not to get to where I was.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. I've had some, similar reflections as you, of like looking back and like when you're as a high school kid, it's hard to navigate that sometimes. You know what I mean? Like it's really hard to navigate. Like, man, this dude just won't leave me alone, or this guy's just kind of a prick to me. You know what I'm saying? But like as I've been older, like coaches and even some teammates is like, oh man, they were really just pushing me. But as a kid, it's hard to navigate it. I remember when I was playing football and they were looking at me of maybe being the quarterback. I was kind of in a competition with one of my good friends, Jordan Wilkins, and I, like you were saying, I played basketball in the summer. I didn't go to any football. Like football wasn't my sport, but I go to two a days my sophomore year and stuff, and the coaches were just drilling because I didn't go to anything in the summer. I didn't know any of the plays, but they threw me in there, and I was too stupid to not ask any questions. I was just like scared, but like looking back, I'm like, oh man, they were really just trying to make me be better. And I wish I maybe would have stuck with it. I ended up golfing, which I love golf anyways, but as a kid, it's just hard, right? It's hard to kind of navigate some of that. And as we kind of go through, and as I got to college, I started to figure that out a little bit more. But back to high school, before we get to college, what was how did your high school career end up? How did it go? And how did like that 'cause you mentioned it too, how did that work ethic of I'm coming in to try and be better every single day? Because wrestling and like combat stuff, dude, like you have to have that mentality. You have to have it. It's kill or be killed essentially. You know what I mean? And you have to be a dog when you're in there. So how did that help you throughout your high school career, and how did you end up?
So my high school career wasn't anything crazy. Like, I would say it was probably a little underwhelming for most. For like, if you look at my college accolades and my high school accolades wouldn't uh, say that where I ended up in college was. Like my freshman year, I didn't go to state. Sophomore year, I didn't place a state. My junior year, same thing. I didn't place a state, and I wasn't really close to like sniffing even the placement. I was like 0 and 2 my sophomore year. Uh, Junior year, same thing. I just didn't do well. I think I won one match. It was 1-2 at state my junior year, and then my senior year, really grew in my body, and also I think um, that was had a big part to it. I was finally up to 170 my senior year. Really just grew into my frame. I think it was just I gained confidence in myself. I think that's a big thing um, in the combat sport world that some people don't always have. They lack that self-confidence. Even if you're not performing where you got to be, you have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, then it's a solo sport. You have no one else to pick you up. If
Hmm.
you go out there and you're not fully believing in yourself and your abilities, then you're not going to do as well. And I think that's where I struggled for a long time in high school, was I didn't truly believe in my abilities until I started to get older and hit my senior year. And it was my junior summer going into my senior year, and I just like finally found this like confidence in myself and I started we went to because I would go to like summer tournaments and whatnot throughout the year it's called Fargo and it's the national tournament for like high school in Fargo, North Dakota, and my parents invested a lot of money in for me to go to these things, and I'd go down there and be more interested in the gear and the swag than competing because I just knew I didn't stand a chance. And I'd go down there and I'd go 0-2 and just get kicked the shit out of. Um, but I kept going every year and kept going 0-2. And then my junior to senior year, I finally built this confidence. And my coach, we didn't have a lot of people go to Fargo that year. We actually didn't go as a team from Missoula. And we went to the AAU Junior Olympics. And I went down there and I only lost one match, went undefeated for the most. So I was it. I forget the exact amount of matches, but I only lost one match while we were down there, and um, it was just like a boost. Like some of the kids I'd beaten, I was like, man, I didn't think I'd beat these kids before,
Mm-hmm.
and like just locked in this confidence into myself going into my senior year, where I was like, I can compete with a lot of these kids. By the time I hit my senior year, I went out there and I only had one kid. His name's Luke Ensel. He actually was the only one to beat me my whole senior year. He beat me at Garden City. He beat me at divisionals, and he beat me in the state finals. Um, but outside of that, I put together a really good senior year, and we went down to the Western Junior Regionals, and Coach Schaefer, who was the head coach at the University of Great Falls at the time, him and my coach Jeremy Laporte had a good relationship, and their coaches on our Western Regional team. And um, I went out and I started wrestling really well at Western Regionals down in Pocatello, Idaho, and I started winning matches down there. And he yelled across the room to, or I guess the arena, to me, and he was like, "Do you think you can get a 3.25?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I can get that by the end of the school year." And he goes, "Well, if you do, we have a spot for you at the university." And it's funny because my coach after I All American, he was down there in Iowa. Even though he wasn't the head coach anymore, he came down to watch his senior class wrestle, and he made the joke. He goes, "When I recruited you, I wasn't expecting you to be here." He goes,
Mm-hmm.
"I was expecting you just to be a body in the room and be that person that's going to show up every day."
Yeah, dude. That's that's it right there, right? Like it takes a couple matches for a kid, I would assume, in wrestling to kind of gain that confidence and realize like, wow, I can do this. And once somebody believes in themselves and they have that confidence, I believe anything's possible. And
Oh
in
yeah,
wrestling is especially, but in all sports, it's just like baseball, dude. Like if you're in a slump and you can't hit the ball, but then you have a game where you go 4 for 4 and you carry that confidence over, it turns a lot of things around. Or for me, shooting a jump shot, if I went and played somebody in a game and I had a bad game, but then the next game, I hit my shots, then you kind of gain that momentum and you start having that confidence and self-belief that I belong here, right? And it goes a long
Mhm.
way. And so for going 0-2 in state and ended up in the state championship, that's amazing. I think I remember that kid. I think I remember the kid just from the grapevine. But before we move on to college, what was it like competing in the Metro? Like I went my senior year, so it was a year after you left, and that place is crazy. It is insane.
It is definitely a cool place to compete, especially with how they do, because wrestling, they do all classes together.
Mm-hmm.
So when the finals go down, they break it down to four mats. You got B, C, A, B, C, and then double A and A all spread out. And it's just like, it's a really cool atmosphere, especially like when you get to the finals. It's just, you have everyone in attendance is there, and like all down on one four mats, and it's really cool. It's definitely a moment that sticks with me, that's for sure.
Yeah, dude, it's a crazy environment. And like when someone gets a pin or they get a point, like you just see like, oh, there's Huntley Projects fans over there, they're going crazy. There's Sentinels fans
Mhm.
over there, they're going crazy. Two, they're like two or like whatever the point is
Yeah.
for a takedown. It was crazy. It was awesome.
And I think the cool thing about Montana is like you were saying, it's a big state, but it's such a small knit like sport community that you
Hmm.
also have people from other towns that are cheering you on. And so like you get their cheering section and you get their support from some of their teammates just because you know everyone, they know you, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously traveling, it's not like Montana's huge, so when you travel, we travel with kids from Bozeman, from Kalispell, from Billings, from Helena. So you build these relationships with all these kids on other teams, and so it's like it's pretty cool to have that support from like other teams as well.
Oh yeah, and Montana's a really good wrestling state. Like, there's a lot of kids that went collegiate, and there's a lot of kids who went, major D1 schools. Um, and to see a lot of the kids too, like you, become an All-American in college, and so transitioning to college now, taking that work ethic, taking everything you've learned now. What was that transition like? Because Schaefer had a really good program historically, just an awesome program, All Americans almost every single year. Um, battling with Northern, battling with all these other colleges. What was it like going to a room like that where it's like you obviously have to grow and develop, but it's probably a different kind of grind than you were used to.
Well, it was it's a whole different type of grind. I think the term like I think the biggest difference is like obviously you do a lot of training in wrestling, and I had a like I said I had a great coach in high school that kind of ran his room like a college room,
Mhm.
so I kind of got to see it beforehand how hard it was going to be. But it I get there, and I had wrestled with that some of the kids during the summer and whatnot, but I got to campus and um, for me it was just I showed up and only was focusing on wrestling. So I didn't really try my freshman year in school, which is part of another story we can get into later if you want to. But I I showed up and just really only focused on wrestling and then obviously partying on the side.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And those are like my what was wild. Those were like my two main priorities during the time. And um, with wrestling, I just dived all in, and it was a real eye opener. We were practice like at the old University of Great Falls. We were down in what was called the dungeon. It was like a downstairs wrestling room that was all padded up pillars, and it was like a little tiny little box. And you're down there, and I was like, oh, this is just going to be another wrestling practice. And as soon as you feel the intensity in a college room, it's like a whole different level of intensity where it's like these guys are here to fight each other every single day because they got something to prove because they want to be the starter. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like your cakewalk where you have JV and varsity and like you can get like some easy goes in high school and whatnot, but it's like in college, it's like every single person you're about to go with today is good
Mm-hmm.
and they belong here and they're going to remind you why they belong there. And I think that was a big eye-opening transition of like, oh man, I'm going to have to give my all here. And I think that was like one of the reasons why I focused so hard on wrestling and then the partying on the side was just like my release from it because I was like, I don't want to do school and whatnot until you realize the only way to compete in college is also be good at school.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember that dungeon. It was like right underneath the locker room, right? Like the boys' locker
Yeah.
room. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mhm.
Remember I poked my head down there once. I was like, damn. Like it's really kind of like I don't want to say eerie, but like
Well, it was eerie.
yeah, yeah. It was a different vibe in there. But like to what you were saying, as a 18-year-old, 19-year-old coming in to college, right? You're like, I'm here for athletics. I'm here for the social time. School's kind of on the back burner. I mean, I had to learn that same lesson too, because truthfully, like in high school, I wasn't the smartest student. Like I didn't catch on to a lot of things like math and biology. That's just not my gig, you know. But like as a college kid, that's like one of the lessons you have to learn, right? Is like you can't just go to practice and go party. Like the Skrillas or the Villas back in the day, like they were always
Mhm.
popping, and like you have upperclassmen or throwing parties, and it's like this whole new atmosphere you're like introduced to, and you're like, wow, like this is fun.
This
You
is the
know what I
life.
mean? Like independence. That's when you first get to taste your own independence because you're truly only accountable for yourself. Like you don't have your parents telling you to go to bed at 10 anymore. You're kind of doing your own thing, and it's a big transition period that I think a lot of kids have to navigate, even if they're not an athlete, right? But when you're in the situation you and I were in, it's like, okay, well, if I'm failing, I can't compete. If I'm failing, oh shit, my coach is going to make me do some extra stuff or make an example out of me. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing more frustrating than having a teammate academically ineligible. Luckily, like we both took a red shirt that first year, I believe.
Yeah.
So it gave me that time to really adjust and figure out how to do college. Like you don't necessarily have to be the smartest person to know exactly what everyone's talking about, but you got to show up to class. You got to be on time. You got to turn your stuff in on time. And if you need
Yep.
help, there's people you can get help with, teammates, friends, the teacher's office hours, whatever it is. But it was hard. And I think my first semester, well, actually my first year in general, but more so the first semester, I was focused a little too much on partying too. And it was like, damn, you know what I mean? I could be doing a lot better. And so, what did you get your degree in? What's your degree?
Health and human performance.
Health and human performance.
Which because I started at UGF, so it carried over, but it switched to exercise science once they went to the University of Providence.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I may have had a class with you my freshman year. I bounced between 3-4 majors that first year because I just went undeclared. And I did a couple exercise science classes and stuff. I ended up being a psych major. Then I was like, I'm gonna be a teacher, and then I went to the teaching, and I had a couple classes with your friend Dodson and history, and I was like, yeah, I'll go back to psych. But it's like if you just stay on top of your stuff, man. The biggest advice to any college athlete or any kid trying to go to college and be an athlete, just understand, just do the work, get the help you need, and turn your stuff in on time. That's really it, but to navigate that with athletics, like my main priority was basketball. And then after my freshman year, I felt like I kind of fixed the priorities in my life a little bit to where I was like, like I'll go out with the friends and I'll go have fun, once you turn 21 and all that good stuff. But I just realized, okay, I need to focus on athletics in school. The fun stuff can come, as time goes. And so, you took that redshirt year, big transition year for any, 18, 19-year-old. Like, you're not really competing, but you're still going to practice and getting the shit kicked out of you. Did you have to weight cut or do anything like that?
Well, with wrestling as a redshirt, you actually compete. You go to
Okay.
a lot of open tournaments. And that was, I think my redshirt year was a big growth for me. Obviously, my social life, I had a lot of figuring out to do. I was still in that party phase and wanting to go out and party, and I didn't really grow out of that until around my sophomore year of getting in a lot of trouble. I was always in trouble in the dorms and whatnot as a freshman. Um, but yeah, you get to travel to a lot of open tournaments, and I think there was one open tournament I went to as a freshman where I feel like I grew a lot. I gained a lot of confidence, and I was like, it's called the Cowboy Open down in Laramie, Wyoming, and it's a pretty big open tournament. A lot of D1 schools go there, and I went down there and I wrestled. I was in the JV bracket, they call it, but there's for like the red shirts. It's not like the starters, which were up in the open bracket. Um, and there was a kid in the bracket, and I wrestled him in the consolation semis. And his name was Kevon Buckley, and he was actually a four-time state finalist and three-time champ, if I remember right, here in Montana from Bozeman. And I saw him he was my opponent, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, no one expects me to beat him. And I had Ty Vincent and Coach Schaefer in my ear, and they just reminded me, you can beat this kid. And I went out there and I wrestled him, and we went to overtime. And we were both really tired on the edge of the mat. And you got to be around Schaefer, so you got to see it. And he was jumping up and down on the sidelines and in his coach's chair, clapping his hands. And he looked at me and he's like, smell blood," and he was yelling it at me. And I looked over and I saw this Kevon Buckley sitting there, and I was like, man, am hanging with a kid that everyone in the state of Montana didn't think I could ever beat.
Uh-huh.
I was like, we're about to go to overtime right now, and then takedown wins this match. And like this, like I got this like energy, and I got back to the center before him, and I ended up getting the takedown in overtime to beat him. And it was just like this confidence booster. It's like, man, I've worked my ass off this whole year. I have a lot of good training partners, a lot of the upperclassmen that I got to wrestle with. They got me better too in the wrestling room,
Hmm.
but it was like that boost of confidence of just like you look how far you come, and let's see how far we can take this.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it's Schaefer. He's very animated. He's very, very,
Yes,
very animated. But then you have a guy like Ty Vincent, Great Falls High alumni. Like, where did Ty go and wrestle? He wrestled at
Oregon State.
Oregon State, dude, right? Didn't he wrestle? Wasn't like Kobe Covington at Oregon State when he was at Oregon
Yeah,
State? Like, it's crazy the connections these Montana wrestlers have, and but like having people like that, dude, who are just as passionate about it as you. Like when your coaches are just as invested as you and invested in you, there's nothing else you could ask for, man. Schaefer was definitely a great coach, and that was probably a big turning point for you to realize, like, oh, I can do this, right?
yeah.
Um, so you have that, and then you had a medical red shirt. Was it your shoulder? Was it your knee? I think I kind of
So
remember you kind of being laid up a little bit.
yeah, that came after my freshman year. So fast forward to my freshman year, I got inserted into the starting lineup um, at 197. I had another kid named Sam Voigtlander who we kind of split time, but he ended up going down to 184, and it left the 97 spot open for me. And I didn't really have a lot of experience as a starter, but Schaefer took me to the regional tournament, and I ended up placing third at the regional tournament, which qualified me automatically for national as a freshman. And I went to the national tournament as a freshman. I lost my opening round match, and it was kind of like an eye opener. I went there, and the kid I wrestled was pretty high seed. I was like considered like yeah, there was 9 returning All-Americans in my bracket that year, and only 8 got on the podium. And I drew one of them, a kid from Doane. And I remember he came out and he hit me with some hard hands, and I was like, okay, this is a little bit, this is crazy. These guys mean business here. And I lost my first round match, and I actually rattled off 4 matches in a row to get to the night session, and I was wrestling that match in the night session, and I ended up dislocating my shoulder.
Hmm.
And I had a multi-directional displacement. My shoulder's been known to dislocate it. I would just dislocate it in practice, and I had it happen to me so much, I was able to put it back into place
Mm-hmm.
by myself. And that was the first time where it actually dislocated and it wasn't going back in. And Brad had to take me to the back. We couldn't get it to go back in. Couldn't get it to go back in. And I had to go to the emergency room after I lost that match. Went to the emergency room, and they were sitting there. And one of my other coaches at the time, Ryan Martin, was there in the emergency room with me, and we're sitting there and we're waiting for the doctor to come in. My shoulder's out of place, and all of a sudden it clicked back up in. And Ryan looked at me, he goes, "Does your shoulder just go back in?" And I laughed and I was like, "Yeah, I did." And so we went, got the doctor and everything, and then that following summer, I started to come back the season, and um, they I would wake up in the middle of the night and my shoulder would just be out of place.
Hmm.
And I have to like throw it back into place. And it started to get so bad to where if I reached down under my dorm room bed or into anything in my apartment, it would sometimes just go out of place, just me trying to reach under the bed. And so I went with Brad, was huge help with this whole thing, and he was like, I think the best option is to get looked at. And when I went and got it looked at, we found out that I had chipped off about half an inch of bone on the top side of my socket, and then about a quarter inch of bone, or it was half inch in the bottom, a quarter inch of bone in the top of my socket, and it was just like a free flowing socket. So every time if it went, it would just go right out, fall down,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would go back up in. And that the force of it going back up into place just hit the top of the socket and chipped off bones. And when they went to the MRI, I had a bunch of bone spurs. So they said the best thing was surgery, and they were worried. They're like, I don't know if you might lose a lot of flexibility and it might hinder your wrestling. But I was there like it's the best option. So I had surgery where they went and they took a bone graft out the back of my shoulder blade, rebuilt the bottom of my socket, and then rebuilt the top of my socket, then took a chunk of tendons and ligaments because my shoulder had stretched out so much from going in and out of place. And they took a chunk out and then tied them back up together. And that was after my freshman year. So then I took my injury redshirt my sophomore year
Mm-hmm.
because I went under, got surgery, and I was out for about 6, 7 months of
Mm-hmm.
being in a sling and being brutal. It was not a fun surgery and not a fun recovery process.
Yeah, dude, it's I couldn't imagine, especially playing like competing in wrestling, dude. Like your shoulders coming out, that's a big problem. I feel like there's some other dudes that had some similar things going on like that. It was just like it slips out, you can pop it back in, but sometimes it won't go in. Like in the UFC, we see that with the dude like TJ Dillashaw, like his stuff, like he was in that title fight, I think, and it just wouldn't stay.
Kept
And
going. Yep.
it's just hard because you have so much leverage. You're trying to grab onto a leg, or your shoulders are up here. You're trying to do that kind of stuff. Like you need to make sure that thing's like dialed in, you know. And so, um, what was it? What mentally? What was it like, kind of going through that? You know, not being like you had a good. You ended up, you know, going to nationals, like doing some things you didn't think you would be able to do, or maybe people didn't think you would be able to do, and you proved yourself that you're worthy of being in that position. What was it like then having to kind of like sit out and watch and just go through like
Uh,
that rehab process?
I think I grew a lot. I had a lot happen in that year off. My mom passed away from cancer, and that really lit a fire under me for my purpose and my drive was I'm gonna make sure I do this the right way this time. And that's like kind of I cut back on my partying and doing all the shit of getting in trouble like I was, and really did a lot of growing up in that time. Not fully grown up, but did a lot of like
Mm-hmm.
growing up in the terms of like college and understanding that to be successful in college is not just about being the guy at the party. And obviously, Schaefer and I had a lot of good little conversations behind closed doors about my partying. And one of the biggest things that stuck with me was I'd gotten in trouble and I got called down to his office and he looked at me and he goes, one thing you have to understand about you as a drinker and a partier is you're not the type of kid that can just show up and have one beer. Like you have to show up and get blacked out.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, and with that, that becomes dangerous. He goes, maybe it's something you have to cut out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And at the time, I was roommating with Austin Shoup. And we were
Yeah.
not really we were not really good influences on each other at the time with our drinking, and it was definitely through that time I really just grew up as a person, and um, my drive really for wrestling came about from all the stuff that I had going on, all the dumb partying, getting kicked out of student housing, and all that. Really just understood like what it took to uh, become like good at what I wanted to do, and it was like that's not who I want to be,
Yep.
and also to reach where I want to be. This is not what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
and so like I'm also thankful for that year of well, yeah, I would have liked to continue the momentum because I was confident. I was like, damn, I just came really close to All American. I was a match away from All Americaning as a freshman. And I was like, man, I could really be there. But I was like, also at the same time, I'm thankful that it happened when it did because it allowed me to grow up in that time frame.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, absolutely. Hey, and Shoop was a dog too. I remember growing up, Shoop was a really good wrestler, but he could get a little wild. You know what I mean? And that's, growing up, I think those are some of the lessons like we all got to learn. Like you get that little taste of freedom, and it's like, wow, I can go pound a 30 rack with the boys, and you know, probably missing class tomorrow, but that's all good. You know what I mean? And um, I think it's important sometimes to have those moments where you're like, oh my god, like this isn't a good situation for me. For you, student housing or whatever it may be, it's like you can go one or two ways after that point. You can continue that, or you can be better, and you definitely took that high road. Um,
Mhm.
because as you were saying, you went to the national tournament after you got healthy. You went back every year, right? And
Mhm.
and then your senior year, you all American. I remember because we were all at my crib. I had some basketball players at my crib. We're watching you guys go, because there was a handful of you guys who made it into the blood rounds and won that first. Because you have to win that first round in the blood rounds, right, to get that All American status. Correct?
Yeah, so the blood rounds is like the is considered the quarterfinals on the front side. So if you win that match, you're in the semifinals, which puts you top four. And then on the back side, it clears out down to the other final four. So it's basically it limits it down to the top eight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and y'all really put on. So what did it mean to you to like finally get through that threshold and become an All-American? Like you from high school when you're like going 0-2 at state in Montana, but now here you are, what is it, 8 years later, or no, not even 8 years later,
We're
4 or 5 years
6 years.
later, and now you're a national All-American at the NAI level. And for people who don't know, NAI wrestlers beat D1 wrestlers. Not all the time, but it happens. So what did
Yes,
that
it
mean
does.
to you? That means you're one
Um,
of the best in the country.
Yep. It meant a lot. I think for me, I always came up one match short. So then my junior year, my sophomore year, I went back to made the national tournament, and um, I actually was up at heavyweight now instead of 197, and I didn't do too hot. One went like 2-2 at that national tournament, and lost on the backside. And then my junior year, I made it to the blood rounds, and I lost in the blood rounds my junior year. And I think that little taste, I was like, man, I'm getting there. And I kept making, um, sounds cliche, but I kept making adjustments in my personal life where I was like, coming back, I started eating healthier. I started devoting more time to the gym, and just kept making little adjustments throughout that time to where by my senior year, I went in there pretty confident. I put together a pretty good year my senior year. The number one kid in the bracket. I wrestled in national duels. He was a three-time national champ, and I gave him a close match where he had to get a takedown in the last 30 seconds to beat me at national duels. So when we got to the national tournament, I was riding pretty high. Um, uh, then to hit that semifinals match, I was actually wrestling the kid in the quarterfinals that beat me the year before in the blood rounds. Um, so it was kind of like full circle to really, because to beat him, it was like, okay, I just did a lifelong work to get here, and now I can finally call myself an All-American. And it meant a lot to me. It was kind of like I knew the job wasn't done because I set my goals pretty high that year. I told myself I was going to be in the national finals. I didn't want anything less than the national finals. Um, and so once I got there, I knew it wasn't done. It didn't really set in until after about just being an All-American because I went on to the national semifinals and I ended up getting re-rolled and I threw the kid to his back, and then I got re-rolled and ended up getting pinned in the national semis. And I did the what's called the semifinal slide where I lost my semis, and then mentally I was just so distracted. I thought, oh, the end all be all is just to be in the national finals. And then I fell down to fit the consolation semis. I lost again and lost again in my fifth and sixth place match to take sixth. And it was just because I mentally wasn't there. And then afterwards, I started to realize like it would have been nice to go out there and compete because being an All-American second through eighth is still badass.
Mm-hmm.
And I got distracted by this. Oh, I wasn't in the national finals. Oh, I didn't achieve all my goals. And at the end of the day, it was like, man, it could have went out and had a lot more fun in those last couple of matches and had it mean a lot more because I would have gone out like actually competing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it definitely meant a lot just to get to that level and know that I was one of the eight best heavyweights, especially at heavyweight that year. There was a lot of good kids, and to know that I stood with them was it meant a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Can you adjust that camera a little bit? Some
Yeah.
part of your head's kind of other way. Right there. Perfect. 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 But yeah, dude, it's again, kill or be killed in there, right? Like all American, and I totally understand like that slide, right? Like you're probably you're obviously a match away from the national championship match, right? And then just like that, the weight of that disappointment, I could definitely see that. You know what I mean? Where it's like, man, like I'm not going to get my goal of being a national champion or even get into the position to compete for it. Like I could totally see that, dude. But in hindsight, right, you're saying like I could have had a little more fun with it, right? But at the end of the day, we can't go back and change history. But I guarantee you, that's given you better perspective on how you approach like this next phase of your career, which is MMA. Like I didn't know you were in MMA until I don't know, was it a couple years ago? I saw you headlining a card in Missoula, and I was like, holy shit! I was like, first off, I didn't realize you were from Missoula. I was like, what is he doing in Missoula? Because I was in Missoula right after we graduated from UP for about 2 years, get my master's. But like, how is all of this, like from the beginning to now, kind of like gotten you into MMA and influenced kind of that journey?
Well, I think a big part of it was my young wrestling coach, Matt Powers. He was the MMA coach here in Pound for the Dock Pound. So I'd always been around it and had this drive for it. But the real side of it is this, you get to go out, and the big thing with MMA is you get out what you put in.
Mm.
If you go out and work your ass off, you get in shape, you put in the time, you become good at the techniques and become good at the things you do, you get to go put them on display for people. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a big driving force for why I love MMA so much is you get to do all the hard work behind closed doors, and then come showtime, you get to go out and put it all on display for everyone. And obviously, it's on a big stage, and the bad can happen. I've obviously had the bad happen in my career, and I'm thankful for it so far as how things have gone. But it's like at the end of the day, you get out what you put in, and that's the big thing about MMA is uh, you get to show up and you just get to outwork someone. You
Mm-hmm.
get to be the better man mentally and physically because you put in the harder time and put in all the effort in your training camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's shoot, dude. It was the wrestlers at UP who really got me into watching MMA and appreciating it. I remember I went over to Dobson's dorm when dude, you may have been there when Adesanya versus Gaslam happened for the interim belt at what is it, middleweight, I believe. No, not middleweight. Yeah, middleweight. And I was like, damn. That was like the first time I ever saw Izzy. I was like, damn. Well, then Calvin Gaslam too in that fight. You're like, damn. Like these guys are. It's insane to me, dude. Because like you said, it's your will versus another dude's will, and outworking somebody. But not only that, you're in a crowd of 20, 30,000 people or whatever it may be. Like I know you fought in the Adams Center, and that place can hold what 12,000, 15,000 people, whatever it may be. And it's like it takes some balls to get in there for one, but for two, I always just think of the preparation leading up to it. There's so many different things that can go wrong in a training camp. There's so many things that can go right in the training camp. You know, you got dudes, especially like in your Fusion Fight League, right? Is that what you're in?
Mhm.
Especially in
Yeah,
Fusion,
that's one of the ones.
yeah, you're kind of bouncing around, which is dope. But like sometimes your opponent might drop out and they might try and throw another dude in there or whatever it may be. Um, how long have you been at it? And like when you graduated UP, when did you kind of start getting into MMA and stuff? And where do you train out of in Missoula?
Yeah, so I finished up school in 2020. Obviously we graduated with COVID, so
Yeah, yeah.
we kind of just got in and got out of there with graduation, and I moved back here. When I moved back here, I was gonna just do jiu-jitsu. I wasn't really gonna do MMA, but my coach really pushed me to give it a try, and like I said, just that work ethic and being able to just outwork someone and know that you put in more time and was better drove me into MMA. I train right now at Missoula Kickboxing and Zoo BJ to J. And that has been, I have wonderful coaches there. I couldn't be more thankful for my coaches um, that I have there. And I think made my debut in 2022. So I took some time just to start to learn the box, start to learn to get some striking down. Um, and then I made my amateur debut in 2022 and went 2-0 as an amateur. And I cleaned up, pretty much dominated the Montana side of the amateurs. And we were starting to look national. And I kept struggling to find matchups because, like you're talking about, people pull out. And I probably went through about 5 or 6 training camps where I had fights lined up and my opponent pulled out. And so that was when I was lucky enough to get into contact with a management team at the time, and they were like, "Well, let's take the jump to pro. We'll get a lot less of it," and that's when I made my pro debut in 2023. And I made a big splash as a pro, my pro debut, and then after my pro debut fight, I had a lot of momentum riding. There was a lot of hype around me around the country, and a lot of people had started to take notice. To where I got a huge opportunity to go down and fight on UFC Fight Pass um, against a pretty tough guy. He actually just fought on Dana White's Contender Series, and he it was a frustrating way. I went down and I got beat, but I I I gained a lot of experience and I learned a lot. And then I came back here. Actually ended up tearing my meniscus training for a fight down in Billings. It would have been January of 2024, and then took so it would have been yeah it would have been October 2024. I made my pro debut and 2023, and then March of 2024, I fought down on Tampa in June of 2024, and then at the end of the year, I was gonna fight early January of this year, 2025, against a guy down in Billings, and I ended up tearing my meniscus, and then I went and had surgery on my meniscus. Um, got that all taken care of, and being the gung ho fighter I took a fight 6 weeks off the table from getting my meniscus repaired. Not like fully repaired, but they cleaned it out, shaved some parts off the meniscus, and got everything ready. Had to go through rehab, and I definitely rushed back and mentally wasn't there, and just went out there and gave probably one of the worst performances I probably could have done, just because mentally I wasn't there, wasn't fully invested into everything, and just wasn't myself that night. And that's the part of MMA. Like I didn't do all the right stuff in training camp. I wasn't doing the right stuff outside of training camp, and it showed in the cage. And I ended up getting beat again. And then just this past October, I took a little break and found myself away from fighting and really and um, grew up as a human, like became an adult
Mm-hmm.
in that time frame from that loss to where I am now, and learned a lot about life and learned what it takes to be a grown man and do things away from it and really evolved. And I just went out and probably delivered a picture perfect performance against a guy that had 44 professional fights down here in Missoula and won by submission in round one and
Yep.
couldn't have asked for it to go better. And now we're back hunting anyone and everyone. So it's just a long process and a lot of hard work. And like we said at the beginning of this, if you want to be good at something, you just got to be dedicated, show up, and try to get better. I think we live in a world that has a lot of ego-driven stuff where everyone thinks they're the best at everything, and no one's willing to get better. And
Mm-hmm.
that was part of the time, like after this last loss, I was like, man, we got to reevaluate things. I got to get better
Mm-hmm.
and go back to the drawing board. And I really just the ego went out the window, and I went show up every day now as a student instead of a fighter looking for a fight. And I just get better every single day right now. And it's just that's the big part is I just feel like I'm evolving every day. I'm finally to the point where it's like life's bigger than what we get to do as MMA fighters. And I think that's the other thing is like I learned that life's bigger. There's a lot more to life. This is what I get to do for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a professional, I get paid to do it, which I
Yep.
can't complain. But I think that's if I can give any advice to anyone out there is just show up every day with no ego. You can't show up like you know everything. You can't show up like you're the best, that I am him or I am gonna be him. It's like there's always someone out there better than you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to keep chasing that person every single day to get to where you want to be. And it can go to anything. Like it can't just be sports. It's like if you want to be the best, whatever it may be you're at, you can't just show up and think, "Oh, I'm already the best."
Yep.
You got to put in all the hard work and learn how to get better, how to make the little adjustments.
I love that. I love that 100%. Like you can't show up with the ego, right? You got to show up as a learner. You got to show up as somebody who's willing to, put the ego aside and has the humility to listen, right? Like I even see it with some of the players I coach in basketball. I was like, come on, man, like listen here. Like you don't know, right? Like let me help you get there. Like you're good, right? I'm not saying you're not good, but there's still a lot of room to grow. And that goes for anybody in any point in their life. Like the moment you stop being a learner is the moment you don't keep getting better. That's when you just kind of stay here instead of continuing to get better and get better. Um, yeah, because you just fought like a couple weeks ago, right?
Yep.
Yeah, man. What's the feeling like getting in there? Like it's different than a wrestling match, dude. What's it like getting in that cage and having all eyes on you and putting on a performance of a lifetime, like your best performance ever?
I would say the biggest one to this one was I just was calm. I think um it was a different like going back to my first fight, going in there I was nervous as shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, it was a lot of nerves. I was like scared. I was like, man, I don't know if that the unknown. And that's why I say like the losses that I took, I got knocked out in the one here in Missoula in front of my hometown, um, and took a loss that I really shouldn't have. And um it was just because I wasn't there mentally, I wasn't there physically, and I just wasn't the person. And I got beat that night by a better man. But it showed me what the unknown was. And the unknown was the sun comes up in the morning, but people around you still love you, and your supporters still support you, and you might have even gained some fans along the way of, wow, I like this, even if you took the loss.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the biggest thing was I discovered the unknown, which is like for a lot of fighters and a lot of people they don't get to experience that until like they're so worried about the unknown. They're so worried about what others are gonna think about you. What if they go out and lost? Like, oh man, all the pressure on themselves. They're like, this person's gonna hate me, this person's not gonna like me, or people are gonna think less of me. And when you realize when the sun comes up that next day after, in my case, I got knocked out, I had to go to the ER, had to get a CT scan, make sure my head was all good. I got my tooth knocked out, and um, it was more just like waking up that morning and knowing, damn, I still have a support around me. People still like me. People still look at me as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big thing to back to what we were talking about is like even if you're whatever you're trying to chase your goal at, you can't worry what other people think.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't value your worth on what other people think. That's because you have to value your worth on what you are worth and what how much you know you put in. And if you know you put enough in, then that's all that should matter. It shouldn't matter what X, Y, and Z think.
Oh, dude, I love that. That's a great message right there because it's 100% true, and I think a lot of people struggle with that of, you know, basing your value of what other people think of you, whether it's in your workplace, whether it's in the sports you play, you know, because especially in sports, there's always pressure. Like even if you're playing, you're a freshman wrestling another freshman, like there's a pressure there, or you're a freshman playing freshman baseball or basketball, right? And so many people, and you've seen it, like you've had to have seen it growing up, where you just see people that care so much about what other people think about them, and I've been a victim of that myself. Of like, oh, I had a bad shooting night, people must think I'm ass, you know, like.
Yep.
And it's the moment you just let it go and say it doesn't matter, you know, and seeing your teammates pick you up, your coaches pick you up, and your family and your friends like, nah, dude, like you're fine. Like we know it was a bad night or whatever it was, you know, like that's what really matters. And those are the people you got to keep around you, right? It's the people
Yeah.
who may fall back and, oh, he's not popping, or he didn't do this or that, you know, like I'm gonna jump on this train, you know, like those are the people you can let go. It's okay, what, I don't need you anyways. It's the people that, you know, after a tough loss and getting knocked out, man, like that's that, the fact that you're able to go into a cage and like face that, you know, threat every single time, it's insane to me. Like it's a true warrior mindset. But like to wake up the next morning and have those people like, hey, you good? You know, your coach is checking in on you, family, friends, whoever it is. Like that's what really matters, man. And that's what makes people real champions, is when they keep those people around them and they continue the fight. Because it's probably really easy for a dude to be in that situation as you know, 6 weeks off the table, not have your best performance, to maybe just quit. Like maybe those thoughts went through your head for a period of time, but fighting those thoughts of like, no, dude, I'm gonna keep going. And then what's the reward on the back end? You know what I mean? Your reward is you put on the greatest performance you ever have. You know, you submitted the dude, right? And I do got to say, you look like you're in incredible shape. You look like you're in great
Yeah,
shape, dude.
that's
'Cause
a huge thing.
go ahead.
Uh, I probably have I believe one of the best strength and conditioning coaches that you have out there, and he's actually a University of Great Falls alum, Dylan Lemry.
Hmm.
And he he's been with me. He picked me up when I first started MMA, and he's just put a belief into me of we're gonna get to the top and we're gonna get there eventually. And he just keeps hammering that home, and he gives me he puts a lot of time and effort into me, and always has workouts ready for me that are modified to get me better in certain areas. And I owe a lot to him to be where I'm at, just not as a coach but as a mentor. He meant I look up to him a lot of things in life, and obviously I got to be his practice dummy as my freshman and sophomore year before he graduated. And it just means a lot to me to have him in my corner, and it's huge to, like you're saying, just have that other person that believes in you, and having a guy like him who works with UFC athletes and is around all these high level athletes, but he also checks in on you, makes sure you're doing okay, and puts a lot of time into it. It means a lot.
Hmm. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. So when do you think your next fight is? Are you like, are you in a camp? Obviously, probably not in a camp or anything like that, but you're still sparring, still training, doing all of that. So what's the difference between just doing your normal sparring, training, and then a camp?
So the main difference is just the intensity. little bit more relaxed and less focused. Like this last time, we really had a game plan going in, and a lot of my training sessions, sparring sessions, were implementing that game plan throughout my sparring sessions. Where you get out of camp, and a lot of the sparring sessions that when you're not in camp, they're a little bit more free, where there's
Hmm.
a lot more sparring, like true sparring, where it's like a lot more free, where it's like you're not really focused on one thing or focusing on this, you're just trying to get better. Where in camp it's just a lot more intense, a lot more harder rounds, and it's just a little more focused, like a lot more specific focus to what you're gonna be doing that night.
Yeah, yeah, dude, it's crazy. And how long do your camps usually last?
8 weeks
8 weeks.
is about like what we like to shoot for. Anything under that is kind of hard unless you're like rolling. Like when I was on my roll after my debut, pro debut, we stayed in camp a lot, and I think that was part of the reason where I had an ego. Whereas this was like, I'm a fighter, I got to be ready to go fight anytime the call comes. 'Cause
Hmm.
my management team was always keeping in touch with me, trying to find fights on a regular basis, and that it just like kept me in this like mindset of, oh, I'm not trying to get better, like the call could come any day, this is what I'm taking to the cage, I just got to learn to fight.
Hmm.
And that was like that's like the big difference to now, where it's like I take some time off, and then 8 weeks is about the good time of giving us 4 weeks of getting in shape, then 4 weeks of hard pushing, and then you're ready to go.
That's great. Yeah. Again, like I just have such a admiration for combat sports. I took a couple kickboxing classes and stuff, and it's a different kind of shape, dude. Like I just hitting the bags. Like I didn't realize. Oh my god! Like my shoulders are burning right now, and like doing the sparring, like even bouncing around, doing the sparring, and learning how to the duck, dip, dive, different positions and stuff like that. It was cool. I don't do it anymore just because I'm coaching. I don't have the time, but um, it's so fun, and it's good life skills to learn. Like when my daughter gets older, I think I'll put her in something like that to where she
Yep.
knows how to protect herself at all times and has some kind of skill because it's important. We live in a crazy world.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
we
Like we
do.
live in a really
I
crazy
do.
world, and I feel like we gotta know how to throw the hands or take the ankle and do something like
Or just
that.
defend themselves.
Exactly. Exactly. Learn how to
I
defend
think
yourself, dude.
I think every younger female should be getting into jujitsu or learning how to defend themselves in certain ways.
Absolutely. And I know we've ran over time by a lot, but before
Oh,
we
it's
get
all good.
before we get you out of here, what'd you think about that heavyweight fight last night? I was really excited for Searle versus Aspinall. It was very interesting for me because Searle's amazing on the feet. I don't think there's a better heavyweight on the feet than
There's
him. But then you have the guy in Tom Aspinall who's good everywhere. And we saw what John Jones did to Searle about 2 years ago, and we've seen what Aspinall's done since he's been in the UFC. What was your feelings, kind of the ending of that fight, and how that kind of played out?
so I'll probably have a controversial feeling to anyone that's watching and listening out there, but obviously I think if you go back and watch the fight from the 3 minutes that 3.5 or 3:45, whatever they got fight, Terrell Gahn had made Tom Aspinall look human, which I think us as fans had put Tom up on this pedestal of being unbeatable. He had looked so dominant. He'd finished everyone so fast. And that first 3 minutes, Surreal really made him look human. He tried to take him down. He hit him with a good head kick. He hit him with some good shots, and Surreal was still standing. And on the other side of it, I think Tom started to face some adversity.
Mhm.
Surreal was landing great jabs and really connecting on his leg kicks. And don't get me wrong, the eye poke was bad. It
Yeah.
was really bad, and it was probably painful. But there's been so many eye pokes that are just as bad or worse in the UFC history, and a lot of them seem to push through. And where I have like mixed feeling is I I don't know if it obviously it was bad, but it it almost looked like from like another fighter standpoint watching it that Tom faced adversity. He didn't like the start that he had, and he kind of looked for a way out. He was given that opportunity of like, can you see? And it was like obviously he probably couldn't see, but like as a fighter, you're told by your coaches and then the referees in the back, you do not tell the doctor you cannot see. You do not say that. That is something you do not say because it's immediately the fight's going to get stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he said it right away,
Mm-hmm.
like without giving it time, without taking the 3-4 minutes that then say it. He said it right away. He's like, I can't see. And you know not to say that. Like that
Yep.
is something they go over in fighters meeting because immediately the doctor hears that you cannot see, they are supposed to stop the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And just to hear him say that within a minute of it happening really was like, ooh,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
faced adversity. And like obviously I want to see the rematch. I think we were in for a great fight. I think it would have been a banger fight, but it was just that thing of like Surreal made Tom look human
Mm-hmm.
and not this unbeatable force that we all thought he was.
Yeah, dude. I unfortunately didn't get to watch. I watched most of the card. I couldn't watch that one because I was driving to one of my basketball games, but I saw it and like the eye poke was bad. Like we're not going to say the eye
Yes.
poke wasn't bad, but you are speaking to what a lot of other MMA fighters are speaking to. They said, was he looking for a way out because he faced adversity? His nose was already busted up. Searle stuffed some takedowns, hitting jabs, really connecting and being comfortable because that like Searle's good. I think John Jones is just that good. And obviously Searle's definitely worked on like his takedown defense and all of that in that 2-year span. But everyone said it. Chael Sonnen said it. He was like, no, you don't do that, especially right away. And I think back to that DC and Stipe fight. DC's eye was torched, dude. He couldn't even open it, but he still fought. He still...
And he also never said the words, I can't see.
Exactly.
And like just to hear Tom say those words in the first 30 seconds to a minute of the injury time, it was that's where it's like, okay, were you looking for a way out or what? Like obviously it's bad, not taking that away,
Right.
but it's like he should have taken the 3-4 minutes that he took and then been like, after the final question comes where they ask Tom, can you see? Then he can say, no, I can't see. But why did he say right away in the first 3 say I can't see?
Right.
Because he knew that was like his way out. Because like he didn't get off to the start that he wanted, didn't go the way the first couple minutes of how he wanted it, and that's just like obviously I want to see the fight. I want to see those two go. Those are two of the best heavyweights in the world, um, and I want to see 5 rounds of it. But it's like in that moment, I think Tom was given the choice for a way out, and he knew it, and he rode with it.
I saw a funny tweet that said, well, John Jones should have fought Tom Aspinall, poked him in the eyes, and he was still retired undefeated. So, well, he would have another, what? Well, I guess he has the loss because of those 12-6s when they were illegal, but...
They just overturned that.
Did
so
they? Yeah.
He's undefeated, yep.
Oh, they overturned it?
Yep.
Wow, that's great. I love it. What'd they make it, a no contest then?
No contest, yep.
Okay, that's great. But yeah, I think, you know, I was telling my boys, I had my cousin and my boy Jordan over, and I actually had my other cousin and her husband over too, and I was saying I'd like to see Searle win because I think he's been so close so many times, right? And he's just that good on the feet, and I think he's just a really good athlete, and so is Tom. But imagine if Searle won, and then we got him versus Alex Pereira. You know what I mean? Like, that would be an insane matchup. Alex wants to move up. You know, honestly, I think we're going to see him and John Jones at the White House.
I do too.
That would be, dude, that'd be crazy. That'd be absolutely insane. Like that's what I like about the UFC compared to boxing, right? You get the stars versus the stars. And to see, because I think this might be a hot take. You know, I'm obviously not a wrestler or I'm an outsider and probably a little bit of a casual to it, but I think regardless of Alex Pereira's, record in the UFC, I think he has to be somewhere in that GOAT conversation just because of the trajectory this guy's had. But then you have a guy like John Jones. This is his last fight. It's at the White House, undefeated. Like, that is the fight. That should headline the White House. Conor and Chandler, that could be the co-main. I hope Conor comes back. I hope he's really spiritually found himself. But
Yeah.
I feel like that needs to be the White House card is
Oh yeah.
headline Alex Poatan Pereira versus John Bones Jones. It would be absolutely insane. But for
It
Tom,
would do numbers.
it would do absolute numbers. And for Tom, it is what it is, man. It sucks because now we got to face the reality of what if Tom just connects in the first round and it's over, but he had all that time to take, that 3.5 minutes to kind of game plan. Oh, this was their game plan. How could we counter that game plan? So it gets a little sticky in that situation for me. I wish it would have played out because if Searle was looking good, as I've been hearing, I need to go find a clip when they upload it somewhere to watch it. It could have been his chance, dude. Who knows? And I hope
really
it gets
do.
booked in the next couple of months. It should, because Tom got his nose busted up a little bit, but really not too much damage there. But I guess we'll see. But yeah, dude. I think that's going to be it for us, man. I appreciate you coming on.
No, thank
again,
you. I really enjoyed it. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate and I admire the work that you're doing. I've seen you at UP, always in the weight room, always in the grind, and just thriving. And to see you in that MMA scene now, I think is great. Again, you look great in your last fight, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you. And maybe down the road we can get you back on here and talk about your next steps. So
Yes, I would enjoy that.
for those watching YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, show some love. But Justin Harbison, give it up for him. Appreciate you again, brother. And yeah.
Thank you.